Hey, 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 welcome to the Beyond the Prophy Podcast. I am your host, Jasmin Haley, former clinician, former educator, and now an amazing entrepreneur. And for this week's episode, we are inviting the Kari Carter-Cherelus. Kari Carter-Cherelus is an internationally known public speaker, consultant, author, a writer, and a clinician with 25 years in the dental industry. She authored the book, The Ultimate Guide for Dental Hygienist Burnout. If you do not have it, make sure you get it. It's on Amazon, my folks, to help dental hygienists in all stages of their career. She uses her platform as founder of KMC Strategic Solutions to help improve the work culture in teams and organizations, as well as to coach individuals. She endeavors to help all who are suffering from burnout and hostile work environments to reclaim their power. She firmly believes that it is only when we have made positive changes from within ourselves that we can influence change within others. Welcome to the show, Kari.
Thank you for having me, Jasmine. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I am so excited to have you on here to kind of dive in a little bit into your journey. You and I have had many conversations behind the scenes, but this is such a great opportunity to be able to showcase the amazing work that you've done over the last few years. And I think, what it would be interesting is for listeners who may not be aware of your journey, what really started your process of you really getting to the point of thinking beyond the prophy? Because what I've read off in your bio is extremely impressive. The work that I see you do is amazing. And so I would love to know, like, what was that catalyst for you to push forward and to do bigger and amazing things? And I think what's also really important for people to hear as you explain parts of your journey is understanding that you defined what success was for you and your family. And so I would love for you to just share what led you to doing the amazing work that you do today.
It was kind of crazy because it kind of started with this podcast and everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, honestly. So I just had when we were saying all that, I was like, oh, this it's like a I don't know 360 moment.
What?
So
Get
yeah,
out of
when I
here.
was feeling really kind of burnt out, I saw
Okay.
Beyond the Prophy. So I saw it on YouTube. I was searching, and I stopped at the podcast because I saw this. It related to me because it was something that I was dealing with, and I saw all the different um, interviewees that you had, as well as that you were a hygienist and you were a black hygienist, and I've only seen a couple and everything. So
We out there. We out there.
I know we are, but you can see it more because of social media. Now you can see more if you're not in
Hmm.
a community that is diverse. So I have some friends who are and everything like that, but and I met quite a bit, but at that point I hadn't met that many and everything.
Hmm.
And so that really started me listening to the Beyond the Prophy podcast. And then when the pandemic hit, I started taking a lot of continuing education courses, and I
Hmm.
attended one that you did with the National Dental Hygiene Association. And then I saw a lot more, but the National
Hmm.
Dental Hygiene Association, and I really liked all that content. And then I think that's how we started working together because you had some of your own courses. And that's how I started speaking because you had a course about speaking and something that I've always done. I won contests when I was in high school and got like some grants and things for speaking. I've always written. I won awards in high school for that. But it was when my career path started with hygiene, a lot of the stuff I used to do, even artwork and a lot of my personality just went away. It was just mainly focused
Mm.
on cleaning teeth and being invested and
Mhm.
being the best hygienist I could be. So
Mhm.
when the pandemic happened and I started taking more CE courses and working with you, and I had already dealt with burnout basically. So I had
Mhm.
already gone through a lot of different offices where unfortunately I didn't always choose the best offices. I can't always just blank
Mhm.
offices. I didn't know that I needed to make better choices. I didn't always feel like I had that variety. Like now with the so-called shortage, there's a lot of different offices that are looking, but whenever I was looking, it wasn't like that. I wish it was. And so I just kind of times got who would hire me. And dealing with discrimination sometimes that just wasn't always the best choice for me, but I needed a job and needed to pay my bills. So I went through a lot of different situations, and I dealt with one office where I totally dealt with burnout, and was crying in my car, and ended up with work PTSD. I left that office. I went to a great office that allowed me to heal. I got great support, and I wasn't doing as much as I normally do. So normally I was like lead hygienist, or I was trauma response, always doing more to show that I deserve to be there, really. So I was always used to being in control and charge of so much. And I got to that office, and it wasn't needed or respected or wanted. They just wanted me to be my job, do my job, and be happy. And I was like, what do you mean? You don't want me to use this extra room and run, run a double call? I was like trying to put more work on myself. And my friend was an office manager. She's like, if you don't go sit down and be quiet, the doctor hear you. So that allowed me to heal, and that's when I started like writing my book,
Yeah.
and deciding what I wanted, because since I wasn't having to do all that stuff, I had time to really think about what I wanted to do as a hygienist, and
Yes.
my next career path, my next goals, and
Hmm.
then just hustling and networking, and all these wonderful opportunities came to me. They just came to me sometimes. So
They just come to you. Let's not even go there.
well, okay, work was involved. Work was
Yes,
involved.
you worked your butt off
I
for
did
every
hustle.
single thing that you have.
I did.
You amplified your voice.
I did only take like, I didn't even take a maternity leave. Honestly, I started working with Arm& and Hammer like 2 weeks before I had my son. 2 weeks before I had my son, I did a big
What?
speech for the dental festival, and then I started with Arm& and Hammer. And then, like
Yes. Yes, you were pregnant.
after I
You
had
were
my son,
pregnant.
I was still doing virtual lunch like right away. Like I didn't take any maternity leave. I did
Lord.
work hard. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you worked extremely hard. So let's not, you know,
That is true.
let's not diminish the work that you did, because consistently showing up has allowed you to open up opportunities. And that's the part that most dental hygienists really struggle with, which is the visibility part. You got to get visible. You're going to have people questioning you. You're going to have people saying negative things. You're going to have the gremlins within your own mind that are telling you don't show up, don't show out, and all of those things. So I would love to know for you, what did it look like for Kari to do the inner work so that you can then make the changes in your career?
Um, it took a lot of self-evaluation. What did I want to do? What did I want out of my career?
Mhm.
So I'm definitely glad I was able to do it, because now I do have a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old. And so it took that I wanted to be a public speaker. I wanted to help other people who dealt with burnout or diversity issues or hostile work environments. And so now, because of doing that work, like you said, I am doing that at a lot of different um conventions. I'm working with
Mhm.
hygienists as well as dentists, and that's
Mhm.
important to me, because like speaking at the ADA SmileCon was good, and I have a couple events coming up where I'll be speaking at dental conferences, because a lot of hygienists feel that dentists don't want this information, or they don't want to change, or they don't want a good work environment, or know what hygienists think. So being able to show that there are dentists who do want to change, or want to set a good foundation for their practices, or make sure they're doing the right thing, is important to me. And then writing. So writing is very important. Yes, I authored my book, but I also have written for a number of different dental journals, and now I'm on the editorial advisory board for Insight Dental Hygiene. So it's from being visible on stage, writing on my own social media platform, that has really helped me. So I do encourage hygienists to do that. It does take a lot, because you, like you said, you have those inner gremlins. So if my hair isn't looking good, I won't come on or anything, because I'm like, I don't look good. But and so
I'm gonna
sometimes
give you about 4 more years. That's gonna change.
sometimes I hold myself back with that. But basically, initially, I didn't want to do reels, because I'm
Mhm.
not the best dancer and everything. I'm off beat half the time. But now you'll see me do my reels, and I find them hilarious at times. But yeah, I entertain myself. But it's, in a way, it's my form of artistry right now. So I don't necessarily paint or draw or do a lot of the stuff I used to do, or poetry. But when I do my reels, I kind of think about like what music or how this connect or be relatable. So just doing the inner work, therapy, all those different things really help to really see what I want it for my career and to go after it. And yes, work is involved. And that's what I do encourage a lot of hygienists, because sometimes they will get discouraged or they feel like nothing's coming their way. But the more visible I get, the more opportunities are in my emails and my DMs. And saying yes to opportunities is very important. So, you know, sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm gonna do it and everything, but I say yes and I figure it out. And Google University and YouTube is my friend. And having a good social network with people helps with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I want, what I really, really desire for the listeners to understand is that you can be your multi-passionate, creative self, be authentically who you are, and be able to make an impact, but also build additional income in your life. I tell you, and I know you have felt the same, because I branched out and thought beyond the prophy. I've been able to do things with my children I dreamed about as a child. Like I used to dream day in and out about Disney World. My mother could not afford to take us as a single parent, and I was able to take my kids. We're going on one in another few weeks, right? We've been able to go multiple times, but it's because of the money, additional income
Mhm.
that I have made by getting visible and looking at ways to expand my own gifts in unique settings. And so that's what I hope that, and I know you've seen this too, Kari, that the listeners like truly understand and think beyond the prophy. You can stay inside of the clinical operatory. We're not telling you to leave, but we want you to also think about what are some ways you can stretch yourself so that you can reach your goals, whether that be additional income, whether that be just making a difference and impact. We all know that each of us desire that.
Yeah, I'm just basically by me doing that, I'm been able to stay home with my child. So he
Hmm.
is gonna hopefully be going to preschool in May because he's just so active and so intelligent.
Hmm.
Everything he like instead of he knows all his colors, but he's always saying like aqua and teal and light green and everything. So he's got to go to school, and so he
Hmm.
can really nourish his mind, which is expanding. But I've been able to stay home this whole time because of doing this. So I work for Arm& and Hammer doing lunch and learns. I work for Baya Gaia doing lunch and learns. I do my own public speaking. When I want to, for certain offices, I will temp as a hygienist. And I keep cultivate different relationships that I have with different offices in the area. I write, I do content creation, there's a list of things, like when I start rattling off everything I do, I just kind of I'm always doing something. I'm always adding something to my list. And some of the things I haven't even really branched out and cultivated in my business yet. I'm a CPR instructor, and that's something to add on as well with my husband and things. So there's so many different ways to add additional income. And I also tell people, I'm not telling hygienists just quit your job. I did have an alternative career webinar in August and showed all the different things that we can do, because a lot of times hygienists think that you can just be an instructor, a clinical hygienist, do sales, and like one other thing. And there's so many different things that you can do. And I think it's important. When I was laid off in 2009, it was very hard for me to get a clinical job. And so I'm happy that now I have so many different multiple streams of income, and I keep adding things to probably trauma response so that if something falls through, I still can make sure that I can help provide for my household. And so I always feel that everyone should have an additional stream of income, because we suffered through a whole pandemic. And
Yeah.
I lost my job then, and unemployment doesn't cut it. Everything here in Florida doesn't cut it. It barely covers groceries and everything. So it's a good thing to do, and just to really continue to see what you want to do and what are your gifts? Like I said, I had all those gifts on the shelf just sitting there. And now I'm able to use them on a daily basis and continue to build my own platform and to help my industry and other industries.
Yeah, yeah, I love that so much. And I think what really resonates with me is being prepared for the unknown. I think that was a really good point that you brought up, because when we went through COVID, there was, for those of us who had already additional income streams outside of clinical, we were okay.
Hmm.
We made it through, right? But for many of us who worked maybe part time in various different offices, maybe temped, the money stopped. Like there was no additional income being provided. And so now, what I love most about what's happening in the industry is when I started public speaking and taking it serious, it was in 2015. I started Beyond the Prophy in 2016, and that also included the podcast starting the same year. So I started my business and the podcast in the same year. And when I opened up the magazine, I didn't see anybody that looked like me at all. At all. When I was considering what were the alternative options for me, I didn't have anywhere else to go. I didn't know where to go. And so I think it's just so amazing now to see so many more empowered professionals, dental professionals going out there, making their own brand, creating their own stages,
Hmm.
building their own environments, and then looking to collaborate with the dental professionals. They have no choice, not the dental professionals, dental corporations. The dental corporations have no choice right now. Right before, I feel like for many years they had a choice, but now they're seeing like the impact that's being created by influencers just like yourself.
Oh yeah, I'll be speaking for a dental corporation in March in Mexico about
Hmm.
empowering the dental hygienist. So I'm looking forward to
Hmm.
that. But yeah, it's so important. Representation is so important. And part of the reason I'm here, like I said, I'm not trying to, but it's you, honestly, because basically during the pandemic, when I start seeing like Beyond the Prophy, and then I started seeing the C courses, it was kind of like, oh, I can be a speaker, like,
Hmm.
and it
Hmm.
seems so childish in a way, but it's the same thing. Until you see people who look like you on doing things that you want to do, our minds kind of say that's not for us, that's for other people, because that's all we see. And now there's other people who are coming out of all different diversities, and they're being speakers, and they're writing, and they're saying how they were inspired. And I encourage everyone, even if you talk about my topic, because you don't talk about like how I talk about it, and we can collaborate, and I can share your information on Instagram and your reels and everything like that. I don't have a scarcity mindset, so I always help others. It's so important. And so I'm just thankful for people who took the chance and built up their own platform, because that inspired me.
I love that. I love that so much. So, what are some of the ways in which, to like tangible things, like maybe one or two things that you would recommend for dental professionals that's listening right now to kind of navigate their own burnout? Because it still happens. For many of us, we haven't done the inner work. For me, like you mentioned, was therapy. It was therapy for me. I needed to
Mhm.
understand the trauma that I was dealing with and have dealt with, and how to navigate that, and do the work necessary to build up the emotional strength to handle the challenges. But I would love to know like one or two tangible things that you would recommend for someone that's currently in that burnout state and just in that pit of despair, as I've described it before, because that's what it felt like for me.
I think I think self-evaluation, they need to sit there with their thoughts. And I think a lot of people did that with the pandemic, and that's why that's one of the reasons there's such a big shortage and people are like exiting, because they had time to sit there with their thoughts and recognize
Mhm.
that maybe they didn't want to return back to that office, or they can choose
Mhm.
better. So when we actually sit there, because a lot of times we just keep going through the motions. So and we zone out with television or social media or something, eating, doing something, so
Mhm.
that we don't have to think about it. And that's with life. That's not, that's anything we're dealing with life. And then a big
Mhm.
thing is therapy. And so a number of people don't want to do therapy, but it's great. It really helps you out. I met with my therapist yesterday, telehealth, and it helps you out because you may have different stories in your head, and they can ask you different questions and behavior modification. Okay, the next thing is a lot of hygienists don't have insurance. Okay, there's a lot of different organizations out there that offer it on a sliding scale, or there's possible things in your local community that you can check out, or you can talk to a therapist and see what are their prices for someone without insurance. They have membership programs. There's a lot of different things out there. So, not to say there's no excuse, but there's a lot of help to really help different people to get the help that they need. And then empowering ourselves. So recognizing that usually we don't have to stay in situations that aren't benefiting us. So sometimes people live in a rural location, and in that rural location there's it's hard to find another office. Like in
Mhm.
my area, there's an office every like minute and everything.
Mhm.
And but in some places they may have to stay there for a while, so you may have to make
Mhm.
a plan to get out, of
Mhm.
maybe work towards being able to work remotely. Maybe you have to work towards your bachelor's degree so that you can do something. So basically, finding a way out. What is a plan? Working with a professional, a coach can help, such as myself or other different coaches. And so, one of the big things, other than self evaluation and therapy, is investing in yourself. The reason
Mhm.
that I'm here today, done all these things, and I could work from home and take my son swimming like I did today, and run to the grocery store right before I got on here, was because I invested in myself. And
Mhm.
sometimes people don't want to even invest in a low cost CE course. Everything has to be free. And free is great. I love free, just like any other hygienist. I love free
Mhm.
things. And when people send me free stuff to try out and show on
Yes.
social media, it's great. Who knows what love free? I'm gonna get my free stuff at Costco too. But you
Mhm.
do have to invest in yourself to go further. Just as you maybe invest in yourself to be a hygienist, you have to continue to make those different investments. And so you have to be willing to do that. And if you're not willing to self evaluate, go to therapy, or invest in yourself, then it's going to be much of the same. Every day is going to probably be much of the same until you're able to learn to do better and to make choices. So in the past I blamed the offices and those horrible people. Yeah, they were horrible, but I allowed different things to happen to me, and I chose that office, and I chose to continue to be in that office and everything. So we have to recognize that we have choices, and the first choice is to really recognize that it's worth ourselves to take care of ourselves in whatever way we can.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I'm sure if you were to look back on your own journey and think about where you've come from, the decision to do more is something that you don't regret. I know I certainly don't.
Mhm.
And many of the people that we bring here on the podcast feel the same. It is so fulfilling to be able to be on the other side of the challenges that we face and know that we've persevered. And we're all very resilient. So you have each of you, the listeners, need to know you have Kari, you have myself, you have every single person that we've interviewed here on the Beyond the Prophy podcast who are rooting for you, who would be an amazing resource for you for you taking the time to consider what your next steps are in your professional career. So, my final question to you is if you were to go back to when you first started your brand and your business, what's one word of advice you would give to yourself?
One word of advice I would give to myself. I guess give myself grace.
Mhm.
I guess give myself grace because s- I would say, yeah, give myself grace. But at the same time, I'm gonna give myself grace now, even saying that, because I got pregnant. I was going through the pandemic. I got pregnant. Then it was postpartum. So it was a lot of hormones and emotion going through that. Like even yesterday, I was sitting through just thinking about like the last couple years, and I was just like, some of those days I was crazy and didn't know. Right? And it's just I just kept, but at the same time I just kept moving and hustling and everything. And I think that that really helped me. I think that if I had not had my business and was building my brand and everything like that, I would have really been sad because, we still had the pandemic. I had this baby I had to keep safe, and, friends couldn't come over and help me and everything like that. So I think that in the midst of deciding what you want to do and doing it, you have to give yourself grace and recognize that you can't look at other people. Because sometimes I would look at other people and what they were doing, and they were able to go all over the country, and I have my family, my baby, my responsibilities, and I'm not necessarily able to do that all the time, you know. But so, and then, so give yourself grace and to look to other people for inspiration, but not to like compare, because then, you can
Yes.
really get down on yourself and, feel like you're not measuring up somehow.
Yeah, and what Kari has not mentioned is the fact that she had to determine what her family needs were. And in that decision-making process, she said, "You know what? I could be a speaker, but I can't be at every single in-person event. I'm going to do mostly virtual." And she's made it work. So again, it's all about, are you willing to be courageous enough to set the plan of what it is that you desire and then ask and negotiate. There's always room for negotiation. So I would love for you to share with the listeners where they can find you. Please let them know that you have a group. Let them know about your book and all of the contact information.
All right. So on Instagram, you can find me on KMC Smiles. Facebook is Kari Carter-Cherelus. I also do have a Facebook group, Dental Hygienist Burnout, Recovery, Career Options. I missed a word, I think. It's a long word. You'll find it. And then my link is bit.ly Burnout Dental Hygienist. So you'll find me. Once you find one thing, you can link and find everything else.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kari, for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thanks for having me, Jasmine.
Awesome. All right, y'all. This was such an amazing conversation. And it was also great to kind of catch up and hear about all of the amazing things that Kari has shared. I will let you know that on my professional journey, I have spent multiple five figures to invest in my work. So when I was working in dentistry and when I decided to branch out, every step of the way, I had a mentor or a coach to support me. There is no fast track to getting towards your goals. It requires you to be consistent. It requires you to push through despite the gremlins that kind of show up inside of you, and to also reach out for help. Reach out for help and support along the way. There are incredible amount of free resources available, but at some point in time, you're going to have to play a bigger game in order to reach your goals. So my challenge to each of you is to determine, what do you want? What are the skills that you have right now that you feel like are not being leveraged in your personal professional career? And from that, take some time to journal. Get a quiet space, because with quiet space, you'll have more clarity, and that will allow you to be able to figure out what it is that you need. Make sure that you reach out to Kari, check out the resources that she has available. She's very inspiring, and it's very encouraging to watch her along her journey. And I will see you all in our next episode. Make sure that you leave us a review. Share this episode. That allows us to get into more ears of incredible dental professionals who are looking to go beyond the prophy.